Hi everybody. I've been offline in terms of making videos and stuff recently because I've been very busy working on a couple of projects that I was requested to assist with, and the first of which was this, We the People and the Crown, and then there's another document which we're still working on now being compiled, which is going to the United Nations on behalf of protecting the children of Britain and addressing the very severe levels of crime that British children are suffering on every level of their existence, and that includes austerity as a crime against children as well. And obviously, you know, the worse the crimes get worse and worse, right down to, you know, organised crimes against children, child trafficking. Britain does not address these problems. Britain is not addressing these issues. Britain is a place where children come last. Children are legally defined as minor human beings in this country. Legally, that's their legal definition, a minor human being. That is what they are, minors. And, you know, this needs to end. It is time our children were considered VIPs, because they are the foundation of the next generation. They are tomorrow's parents. So, anyway, basically what this is, I'm making this video now to promote this article, to promote the cause and to enthuse people into understanding that, look, the bulk of us, over half the people of this country, do not want Brexit in the form that it is being delivered to us. Now, I'm not saying leaving the EU is wrong or staying in the EU is right, but what I'm explaining here is that leaving the EU in the way that this government wants to go about it, this alleged government, actually criminal cabal, myself and many other people very strongly and lawfully suspect that Johnson's landslide victory is the result of a rig. I'm not saying nobody voted Tory, I'm saying he did not get in by a landslide. But we do know that they needed that landslide in order to get Brexit done in the way they want it done, which is not in the way that the majority of people who voted for Brexit ever thought it was going to be done. People who voted for Brexit did not vote for Britain to become a tax haven. They did not vote for the Good Friday Agreement to be scrapped. But these are the things that will happen under this Tory government, and we're moving along there, aren't we? Now, personally, I'm just sick and tired of seeing the posts on my Twitter, on Facebook, on the internet, just moans and groans, the newspapers. Oh, look what Johnson's doing now. Oh, he's going to attack the Supreme Court now. Oh, he's doing this now. Oh, look, he's doing that. I mean, even Sajid Javid feels forced to resign. Okay. Now, the point is that we the people have rights, and we are going to be robbed. We're talking about removal of all our rights. Women, maternity leave, it's going. And for many women it's already gone because, you know, 0-hour contracts don't cover maternity leave. The children are at a terrible risk. Already things are bad, as this report shows. And I go through step by step. But what I'm proposing here is legal action against this government and against the Crown, actually, because this government, Johnson's government, the Tory government, and therefore Parliament now, because they control most of Parliament, is in service to the corporate Crown. and it's offshore territories, the tax havens. All the corporate crowns, offshore territories are tax havens. And, you know, I do list them all here. They are all listed because, you know, it isn't Jersey comes under a different jurisdiction as to the offshore tax havens that are listed here. These are them. Look, British Overseas Territories. But we can't call them British Overseas Territories because they don't belong to we the people. They belong to the Crown. They are Crown colonies. Now, I've presented here the ins and outs of Brexit and shared, and then expressing the damages, because we're talking immense damages. We are talking about a building society and banking bailing that the government has legislated for. A bonfire of rights. Okay? You know, women, once again, women who have children are worthless to an employer, says Nigel Farage. The kind of people, the consciousness that has been invited into power through Johnson, through Brexit, you know, Tommy Robinson supporters pledging their support for Johnson, and then the brutal reality of martial law that they will be implementing as soon as Brexit begins, because they know damn well there's going to be mass riots. Now, already, the person I'm caring for is having difficulties getting his medications. And many people throughout Britain are experiencing that. And we're talking vital medications. It's going to be 10 times, 100 times worse after Brexit. You know, this is something. These are things that a caring, conscientious society of people stand up to address. We surely, don't tell me, people, you're going to wait until Brexit is biting you so hard you're screaming out in pain because you can't get your payments, or you're having to watch your relatives and loved ones suffer. When you get to that point, it's too late, because by then we'll be under martial law. The minute you start protesting, martial law. Protests banned. Tax havens do not do democracies, and that is what Britain is about to become. Now, as I say, I don't care whether people voted Brexit or voted to stay. I understand all the arguments against the EU, for the EU, you know. I'm not saying the EU's perfect. But Britain certainly is not perfect. And Britain certainly is the worst. Is one of the worst among the EU nations. Probably second only to Britain comes Hungary on that score. The British people have been receiving the worst standard of living for other European countries that are on a par with our economy. We are the worst. We are the bottom of everything when it comes to children's rights, women's rights, pensions, you name it. We're rock bottom. We are on a par with Hungary. Why? Why is that? It is time people started asking questions. And so I'm proposing a legal action in order to receive compensation from the Crown. Because that's who Brexit is for. Right? Let's make no bones about it. Until the Tories heard about the EU tax regulations that will be scrutinising all their fraudulent businesses and their tax avoidance schemes and checking how much money is being funneled out of the UK and Europe into their tax havens, most of it criminal money being laundered. Nobody in Britain was asking to leave the EU apart from a few fringe minority groups. It was the Tories wanted Brexit, and they wanted it for one reason, because they're protecting the tax havens. Okay? You know, the vote happened and people voted to leave, but the people didn't vote for an almighty calamitous mess. The people didn't vote to have vital foods and medicines in short supply. The people didn't vote to be poorer. The people didn't vote to trash our economy, which before the referendum was the fastest growing in the G7. Now it's the slowest. The people didn't vote to put at risk peace in Northern Ireland. The people didn't vote for utter uncertainty and chaos just weeks before we are due to leave. Now, the evidence is overwhelming that a majority of the UK public not only don't want the Prime Minister's Brexit, they don't want any Brexit at all. So now I have prepared a list of demands here, and they're very, very similar, a lot of them, to what Jeremy Corbyn was proposing. And Jeremy Corbyn's own demands, actually, own manifesto, was very, very similar to the manifesto that I wrote for Occupy quite a few years ago, which was titled The Rainbow Perspective. Proposals for Change. So, you know, and like one of the things I've suggested here is a immediate 5,000 compensation to every citizen of Britain over 18 because of the damages we've already suffered through this Tory government and what's happened to us through Brexit. And I've suggested that if London itself wants to leave the EU, then let it do so. It's a separate part of Britain. It's a state within a state. So, you know, these people who are proposing to put hard borders across Ireland, build a bridge between Scotland and Ireland, or have a border in the sea. Okay, no, let's have a hard border around the square mile of central London that constitutes the financial criminals that actually want Brexit, have promoted Brexit, stand to profit hugely from Brexit, and while millions of people in Britain literally get dumped into destitution. Because I tell you, the Banking and Building Society bailing, that's coming for the middle classes. That is coming for the middle classes. And nobody's talked about it. Nobody. And yet the government has legislated for it. Already, Cameron legislated for it. It's there just waiting in the wings. And you tell me, people, how the Brexit economy, which will be crashed to the very bottom, how on earth are we as a nation going to be able to pay the £1 billion a week interest on the trillion plus debt that we now owe as a nation through these Tories? How are they going to do it? Of course there's going to be a Banking and Building Society bailing. Of course they're going to be stealing our savings, our trust funds, our homes. So, you know, there's a number of demands here, and you can read through them. I'm not going to read you the whole document, but, you know, I have explained here the situation. Like, it may seem outrageous to request a £5,000 payment to every UK citizen of 18 plus, but it's not at all abominable to burden every single UK citizen with a £60,000 plus debt created by our government and its top financiers and business professionals. And the risks of there's a very, very severe risk when you've got martial law on the table and there's these privatised corporate militaries in Britain now available to hire for the government. Contact us today to inquire about how you can support your objectives. And they even have the power to bring as many troops as they need from abroad. That's serious, people. That is serious. This is what I mean. You know, surely, even people who voted Brexit, you didn't vote for this, did you? You didn't vote to be facing the threat of having your country managed for a despot government by a global military corporation that's recruiting its troops from where? I mean, these are even involved with training ISIS. So, you know, I am proposing that if they're not going to agree to our demands, they're not going to give us our compensation, which includes a second referendum, and that a no deal is off the table, because, you know, we do need to get rid of this ridiculous idea that a nation can vote to stab itself in the guts. And it is a macabre credit to the BBC and all of Britain's corporately controlled MSM that the UK public could even be persuaded to entertain the idea that what amounts to a punishment for rogue EU nations can be voted for as part of a democratic referendum. I.e., shall we have a referendum on placing all people aged 50 plus in a factory prison so we can save money and free up more jobs and housing? Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Oh, only if we can casually ignore the fact that people aged 50 plus are not collectively guilty of any crime, and each of those people have rights. Because that's what this is about. Because once you start removing people's rights, well, anything's justifiable, isn't it? And it's the very fact that this government never took into account our human rights, that they do believe that, oh yes, we can just persuade the public to vote, to punish themselves, to receive a criminal punishment, because the kind of Brexit that Johnson wants is the kind of Brexit that we would be getting if we were kicked out of the EU as a rogue nation. Now, I'm sorry, anybody who votes for that, either they're very simple people or very confused, or they've been fed by a pack of lies. They're believing a pack of lies. And that's why it's very serious when people commit perjury during a referendum to persuade people to vote. A referendum has to be based on facts, not lies. So then I have explained why a rebellion is lawful. Rebellion is lawful when the rebels are responding to a government and justice system and economy which are revolted against the law, democracy, national security and all the rights of the people. Because that is what has happened with this corporate crown, you see. And I've explained it here. The Crown's offshore tax haven territories are completely separate from mainland UK. The Crown's territories do not include EU and UK rights and laws, and they are none of them democracies. Therefore, the Crown's offshore interests are lawfully recognised as foreign interests, supporting foreign powers, and those interests do include nations such as Israel and USA, as well as Kremlin-connected and Russian and USA oligarchs. Being as Johnson and his government, who now commandeer Parliament, are evidenced to be acting solely in favour of the Crown and its offshore interests, legally Mr Johnson PM is an agent of those foreign powers, and the Crown has abused its place and trust and perception as a benign influence within the UK. The Crown now controls UK government, and that is not acceptable. It is a revolt against we the people and an act of violence against all the lawful precedents that found our constitution. Those precedents include EU membership of Europe's Free Trade Union and, as it is later explained here, equally our human rights. And one thing we know for certain, far-right extremists do not at all like free trade unions. So, you know, no matter what we're against with the EU, at the end of the day, everybody was benefiting from the trade agreement with the EU. That is without doubt. Even people who don't like immigration that they blame the EU for, but actually Britain was in full control of, you know, those are the facts, but these are the lies that people are persuaded to believe. But nonetheless, people did benefit from that free trade union and all the rights that go with it. So, you know, it is a very, very serious thing as to what has happened. And it is illegal. It is illegal. And I explain it that Brexit, the purpose of Brexit was mischief. Mischief against the British people. And our security services have let us down. The purpose of the Brexit referendum was alleged to be the result of an attempt to thwart the mischief from Brussels and its laws. Since the laws upheld by Brussels are the same laws also upheld by Britain, and the bulk of them created by Britain and or with Britain's direct involvement, which law from Brussels did the Tory government consider mischievous? Without doubt, it was the EU tax regulations. However, as a fact of law, the new EU tax regulations are not mischievous at all. They're established to the purpose of exposing and eradicating mischief in the form of financial crime and tax avoidance. The Tories and their far-right extremist cohorts engineered Brexit, which from its concept was and remains a mischievous plot for protecting tax dodgers and financial criminals. So, you know, and we get right down to the High Court that decided that, yes, Mr. Johnson is free to lie. It's absolutely outrageous. It is all outrageous. Now, like I say, we the people, we're either going to stand up and demand our rights and bring this class action now before the Supreme Court, because they're the only ones that we can trust. We can't trust the Crown Courts. We can't trust the High Court, already been shown, proven to be corrupt. The only court we've got now is the Supreme Court, and we better act soon, because soon the Supreme Court will have no powers. Please understand that things are very, very, very bad. And we are now living in the calm before the storm. We're living in the calm before the storm. And it is an extremely serious matter when the Prime Minister, a criminal Prime Minister at that, is sat there telling his members of Parliament that his MPs, his cabinet, that they're not allowed to speak to the press. This is very, very, very serious. And you look what his best mate Donald Trump is doing across the waters, and what his best mate Netanyahu is doing right now to Palestine. I'm sorry, these things cannot go on. And we, the British people, we're in a sleep and slumber right now, even though many of you are awake and aware. Oh, look what they're doing to the NHS. Oh, look what they're doing. We can't all stand there going, oh, look what they're doing. We are all going to suffer. We are suffering now. It is going to get worse. The children are at a terrible risk. People have not even got a clue of exactly how terrible life is for children in this country right now. The vast majority of people have not got a clue. But I tell you now, things as terrible as they are already are going to what can I say? What can I say? When will people of Britain understand that, look, things are bad, and if we do not get active now, then sorry, there's no hope. Okay, there is no hope. No MP is going to stand up for us. They're all too scared. The people up top, the ones with the most to lose, are the ones that are going to stay silent. It is now up to us, the people on the ground, to do this, to stand up for our rights and to demand our day in court. Because as I've explained here, that is our right. We have a right to demand that this government gives us a legal account. As I explain here, can the Tories prove? Can they prove that Brexit is not just about them, their financial backers and the Crown's corporate tax havens? Okay, can they prove that Brexit is not just about that? Because how does Brexit benefit any British citizen? When you're looking at your pound being devalued to the old decimal currency of the Crown, 25p, Are our wages going to be quadrupled then when the Crown's dropped to 25p? No, it won't. So you need to think about it. It's no good thinking, oh, it won't happen, when we know it will, when we know that they're ready to make billions the further the pound drops. Wake up to reality, people. Get with it. Because I tell you, you've got, up until the end of this year, really. Because don't think you're going to be able to protest when it starts biting. Because it'll be biting from here, there, everywhere. Like a pack of wolves surround a herd of cattle. Please, please. Look, I'm nobody. I'm just an ordinary British citizen. Okay? And I've put my life on the line here. I've stuck my neck out to write this. I mean, gosh, I must be, who knows who's bloody going through all my personal details right now. But we need to lose the fear. We need to lose the fear, because I tell you now, if you're being governed by fear, it's only going to get worse and worse till finally you face the terror of it and you'll be powerless. Because rights and laws are like muscles, and you fail to use them, and you will grow weak, and you'll get weaker and weaker and weaker. As a nation, we'll get weaker, and we will have no rights to defend ourselves with. We won't even have the right to protest. While they're killing our children, while we're watching our loved ones die with no food and no medicines, while Johnson gets his stockpile of body bags out. Seriously, people, this threat is too immense for us to ignore. As a nation, finally, Britain, please find your courage. Find hope. Hope is something we make. Hope is something that we create. At the moment, I don't see any hope being created. All I'm witnessing is doom and gloom. Well, I know that there's a lot more on offer to us and our children and the future of our country than a cloud of doom and gloom under rule of a load of criminals.